The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to Enor's Fireside Analytics Chat with Josh Kaufman, data analyst at TED Conferences. My name is Josh Kattinger. I am the VP of Sales and Marketing at Enor, and I have the pleasure of being joined, as I mentioned, by Josh Kaufman, who is our longtime client and friend at TED Conferences. Josh, can you say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here and excited to talk through some analytics stuff.
So are we. Thanks for doing this. Just to kind of get some context on yourself, I was hoping that you could give maybe a 2-minute background on kind of your career and where you came from and how you came to TED and into the analytics world also.
Sure. Yeah, I've always been interested in computers and technology, and when I went to college, I studied computer information systems and a minor in business. And my first job out of college was at a nonprofit in DC on Capitol Hill, and they had a website, and I was originally hired just to help post stuff, but quickly kind of overhauled their publishing system. At the time, they were using Webalizer, so that was also right around the time Google had acquired Urchin and got them wired up with Google Analytics. That wasn't the main focus of what I did. When I left there, I actually went and worked in the government. I went to work at the Social Security Administration, so I was on the web team for SSA.gov and helped guide them through a transition from Web Trends to Google Analytics and eventually to Google Analytics Premium, with Enor being our Google Analytics support partner. And was at Social Security for 5 years and had success growing the analytics program there and using it to measure the effectiveness of SSA's online services to get baby boomers retiring, submitting their retirement applications online. And then I transitioned from Social Security to TED. That was back in 2015. So I've been at TED for almost 3 years now, and have been helping them manage a pretty large Google Analytics Premium implementation that I kind of inherited. They had already had it in place for quite a while when I got there. And here we are today, and yeah, we can talk through some more specifics of that.
Cool. Yeah, I always love talking about the early days of analytics. I'd like to mention my street cred is I ran Web Trends on a 486 box under my desk. So
yeah, some of the best technology is just running on people's laptops.
that's way before Urchin or whatever. So let's talk a little bit about TED in general. Obviously, unless you're kind of living under a rock, I think a lot of folks know what TED is in general, but in doing some of my kind of background for this, I was surprised that it goes all the way back to 1984.
Yes.
I did know that it is a nonprofit, nonpartisan foundation, and as they say in most of the pre-roll or post-roll, it's all about ideas worth spreading.
Yes.
So it started originally in the kind of the three verticals of technology, entertainment, and design, but now is kind of all over the place. And the most impressive thing about TED, I think, is aside from the content itself and the kind of viral nature that some of those talks spread, is the sheer amount, the volume. So I guess as of January 2018, the number I saw was 2,600 TED Talks available on TED.com.
Yes.
So that is quite the analytics challenge. So video analytics, I would say you've got that down.
Yes, and luckily at TED I work with an amazing team of technologists, and we have great front-end developers, and they had a lot of the instrumentation for the video tracking already in place, especially on TED.com when I got here. So yeah, we do some pretty granular event tracking throughout the video playback process. So we kind of understand that funnel from when the user presses play to when we start fulfilling the playback, and then we're tracking progress at different intervals throughout the playback through video completion and the ads that run. So yeah, we've have a pretty good understanding, not just how the videos are, like if users are having problems with playback, but also just how the content is being consumed.
Right, which I imagine that's probably a pretty important KPI if people are having trouble with videos, if they're not getting past a certain point.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of hone in on that beginning of that playback process quite a bit.
And TED in general has a bunch of different, both, I don't know, what do they call them, divisions, like TEDx, TED Ed, TED Institute, and then also the content is spread over many different platforms.
Yes. Correct. So yeah, I guess we sometimes refer to those as just different programs within TED. And yeah, all those different programs are producing their own content. So on the last slide of the last bullet, where we're saying 2,600 TED Talks, so that's not like if you were counting the TEDx library, which is available on the TEDx YouTube channel. That's over 100,000 TEDx talks that have been given by people at the independently organized TEDx events over the years.
Wow.
And we're thinking about ways that we can potentially incorporate that onto TED.com and some of our other owned and operated platforms, like the mobile and TV apps that we see here on this slide. And then there's a separate catalog of TED Ed lessons that the TED Ed program has produced over the years. And we're getting into more podcasts and different kind of shows that we're producing in-house. So yeah, the content offerings are expanding as we go.
Nothing hotter than podcasting these days too, huh?
Yeah, that's probably a separate conversation about podcast measurement.
Yeah, let's not even go there just yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you mentioned, a whole lot of different distribution platforms. Let's talk about kind of the architecture that you have in place to wrap your hands around that architecture and kind of understand across those different platforms what your data looks like. So can you kind of walk us through the process a little bit?
Yeah, so this first, the blue section of the circle there, the data capture section, that encompasses basically the first two lines from the prior chart. So TED.com and our embed player, which allows people to embed the videos that they see on TED.com on their own websites and blogs, as well as our mobile and TV apps. So that's Android, iOS, Apple TV, Android TV, which you could watch on like an Amazon Fire Stick and Roku. So yeah, we have Google Analytics properties set up for all those different platforms that I just rattled off. So that's that data capture piece. We're using Google Analytics 360 for all the detailed video tracking on all those different platforms, video players.
And did you tell me that you had it's a custom player that you guys have built, or just instrumented very extensively?
Yeah, so this is a little outside my area of expertise. My understanding is that our TED.com player is custom. At this point, with the progression of modern browsers, the primary way we're serving video content on our website is HLS, and so that was like a transition from Flash to HLS. Like we still have different fallbacks for older browsers, so we still are serving a small portion of Flash video. And then on the mobile and TV apps, I'm not as up to speed on those players. There might be some open source player technology being used there, but we're not using any like off the shelf video players like Brightcove or the JW player. And yeah, so the instrumentation differs a little bit across the platforms.
And that's event tracking in GA360 mostly there?
Yes, yeah, mostly custom event tracking, but yeah, we do quite a bit with custom dimensions as well in the player. So yeah, a few examples of custom dimensions, like most of the players on these platforms, they all support captions or subtitles in different languages. And part of TED's mission, ideas we're spreading, like we want people internationally to be able to consume this as well. So we have a big network of volunteer translators that transcribe the talks from most of the time they're given in English into dozens and dozens of other languages. So yeah, one of the custom dimensions we use is subtitle language. So we can, it's a hit level custom dimension, so we can understand video consumption by different subtitle languages that the users have turned on.
And figure out which languages to invest in more or less, I imagine.
Yep. Other examples of custom dimensions. So yeah, not on all platforms, but like on TED.com, similar to YouTube, we have give users the ability to toggle the playback speed. So the default is just 1, but users can go up to 2x playback speed if they want to consume the talk faster. And then we started to get requests from users that were non-native English language speakers and wanted to be able to consume them more slowly in order to help them learn the language, or just have it slowed down so that they could better understand. So with
That's
that
cool.
with that playback rate custom dimension, we're able to kind of analyze and see how video is being consumed at different rates.
Yeah, I like to set mine to 3x, so it's like getting a TED talk from the chipmunks.
Yeah, somehow they've figured out a way to maintain the pitch so it goes faster without sounding chipmunky, but I don't know how it works, but it's pretty good.
So, and then as far as pulling data out of the 360 suite, how does that work for you guys?
Yep. So let's see. Yeah, we have some weekly reporting processes. So yeah, one of our like just high level goals with our mission of ideas we're spreading is just what's the reach, like how much video is being consumed within any given week, and what is that, what content is being shared and consumed. So yeah, and the first bullet there, the Google Analytics API. So yeah, we're using the core reporting API in R. We're using the R package RGA to get the GA data through R, but there's quite a few different R packages to allow users to get data from Google Analytics. And then yeah, we have the YouTube API, the Facebook API listed there. So we're going out and fetching our view data from all these different platforms and kind of stitching it together in R. So yeah, to make up our weekly reporting.
So main question that jumps off the page there is, why core reporting API if you're running GA360 and not the request API, the unsampled API into BigQuery or something like that?
Yeah, so yeah, part of that is just me and learning curves with me kind of growing up with GA and understanding the GA dimensions and metrics. It's just more understandable for me to work with the core reporting API because it's like learning the syntax of that API calls from R was just a much easier transition than me like learning the BigQuery syntax from the ground up.
It is a beautifully documented API, I have to say.
Yeah. The other thing, you mentioned unsampled data. So the RGA package that I referenced, it has a feature in there called walking. So you can just do a query and get the sampled data back. But the walking feature, like if you set walking to true, it'll go out and do the query and basically query one day at a time so that you're not hitting those sampling thresholds. And the software basically like takes all those individual days together, sums it up, and gives you basically an unsampled total.
And is that walking, the walking sorry about that, the walking granularity, is that a day by default, or can you change it to like a couple of days or a week or an hour?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah, and it's a day by default. There may be ways around it where you could change the granularity, but yeah, that's typically our to just pulling a day at a time.
Which works as far as the sampling issue.
Yep. And that's not to say that we're not using BigQuery, but yeah, we are, and the data engineer that we have on our team and the data scientists that are more well versed in writing those complex queries, they're definitely making use of the BigQuery data, and we're using that, but just not for our weekly reporting. We'll talk about that in a minute, I think.
Yep. And then, so hitting these APIs with R, there's a couple other APIs listed here. I don't know if you have any others, and pulling them into Google Sheets of all places. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So that's just kind of how our process internally has evolved over time. When our data scientists started a few years before I did, and he was trying to get some reporting processes into place, he was actually like using R to write stuff out to CSV files, and then doing charting. So we were using it as our storage, and yeah, so Google Sheets, it's just a quick
an evolution.
An easy way to store data without a lot of physical overhead, and with us being kind of a small and lean shop, yeah, it works well for us. We've certainly talked about storing the data or setting up a data warehouse, but we kind of end up in this place where we try to juggle supporting product improvements and product enhancements, which is more of like an external facing task, versus these type of like data infrastructure things, which are more internally focused. So we're kind of caught there. So yeah, that's kind of why it is what it is, and we don't have some larger SQL database or something that we're storing all this stuff in.
Gotcha. I'm sure anyone can relate to spreading too much work over too few resources.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so once the data is in Google Sheets, then as far as analysis, we come back to a recurring character in the story here, R.
Yes, R. Yeah, so R is actually, there's another package for R called Google Sheets, and yeah, that can read and write from a Google Sheet or specific tabs or worksheets within the Google Sheet. So yeah, the data gets stored in the Google Sheet and then is read in, and then we use another R package called ggplot2 to do lots of charting and visualization of our weekly reporting data. And then yeah, we basically take that output, the series of graphics that get produced, and we publish those to our internal analytics blog.
That's pretty cool. So I've done in my time a lot of reporting, and that reporting was usually in the form of spreadsheets because, as we mentioned, I'm old. So, spreadsheets that get emailed out or placed somewhere and not really consumed, probably, maybe once in a while, occasionally violently scrutinized, but mostly ignored. So I'd like to dig in a little bit more on the reporting that you're doing. Specifically, my first question being, how does the publishing to the blog work as far as does it help with consumption and usage of the reporting? And then follow-up question would be, tell me more about how you got into R and what you like about it for both traction as well as the reporting.
Yeah. So on the first question there. So yeah, it's somewhat manual. It takes a few minutes. Like we publish the weekly report on Tuesday, and we actually have a meeting with some key stakeholders internally to talk through the findings of that week. And those stakeholders are more on like our editorial content side, so like helps them to see how the marketing promotion did that week, like how much traffic was coming into the site, and then how that content performed, like what was the view through rate of the talks that were published last week. And yeah, what were the view counts on different platforms for that piece of content. So yeah, it helps them to see the impact of the work that they're doing on a regular basis. And then on the second question about R, so when I started at TED, R was certainly on my radar. Like I had heard of it, like just being involved in analytics, and it was kind of on a to-do list for me, like something that I should probably look into or learn. And yeah, when I started at TED, the data scientist who I work closely with was a big proponent of R and had quite a few years of experience with it already. So it was just kind of, yeah, mentorship and showing me like how it worked and the power of it. And just with as many things as TED does, like I realized over time that in order for me to scale and grow as an analyst within TED, like it was just something I needed to do. Yeah, so there's like a few examples. Like we do a lot of A/B testing, and yeah, at first I was trying to use the graphical reporting interface, like on google.com/analytics, and it was just waiting for reports to load, and yeah, it took a long time and having to look at multiple screens and do calculations, and it was a lot of work. So the next step in that evolution was me experimenting with the Google Sheets add-on for Google Analytics, and
Yep.
that was kind of my first step into the core reporting API syntax. But again, there were limitations with that, like around sampling. So the way I was like formatting those spreadsheets to get data out that way, it was like same thing. I was like doing the walking process that I described earlier, but manually. Yep. So I was like pulling data a day at a time and like stitching it together. So there's just a lot of manual work going on in the Google Sheets. So then like with Eric's kind of encouragement, like I started to develop my own R scripts that kind of looped to pull all the data that I needed over those days. And yeah, I just saw like, okay, this is a lot more efficient, a lot quicker, which just frees up a lot more time. So that's kind of my personal progression for.
Eric is your data scientist?
Yes, yeah, Eric Goldsmith.
All right, we're going to do a shout out.
Shout out, Eric. Yep.
Yep. All right. So I like the sort of the story of nimble, freely available tools.
Yes.
I'm sure maybe your blog. You can set up a blog on WordPress.
Yep.
I'm not tons of crazy enterprise tools here. I'm hearing open source, really powerful stuff used in an imaginative way. So talk to me a little bit about what are we looking at here as far as charting? There's some particular charting that you like that helps with the data consumption?
Yeah, this is one of the chart types that ggplot2 can produce. So it's called a facet chart or a facet wrap. And we use these a lot of times for they're like data quality checks. So like things that I guess you could call them like ad hoc reports. Like if we're trying to investigate a problem or an issue with our player, they're extremely valuable. So this is just an example that's showing, I guess,
should be clear. This is not TED data. This is a random example of a facet chart.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, but to kind of map what we're doing onto this, so you can imagine each little quadrant that has the years listed in them. So each square would represent something like browser OS combo. Those are two dimensions that are readily available in GA. And then let's imagine that the y-axis there would be our play rate. So starting at like a video page view, then with like a video start being underneath that, like kind of all the way through down to the video completion, broken out by browser and OS combo. So that will show us like maybe there's a lesser known browser that we weren't able to test on, where users are like, and maybe that browser was recently updated and users are having major playback issues. So like in those cases, like we'd see a flat line and then it would just kind of nosedive, or maybe we made an improvement and we see it going back up. So yeah,
And tell
facet
me
chart.
about, on that point, so you see an anomaly. So you've got your standard reporting, you're
Yep.
scrolling, you're looking, everything's normal. You see an anomaly. Tell me about anomaly investigation. How do you drill down in this scenario?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we see an anomaly, like we actually that would kind of prompt us to try and get hands or eyes on that specific device. So yeah, like between myself and some of the other people on our team, we have quite a range of testing devices. So yeah, we'll try to see, like I said, get our hands and eyes on that device, and most of the time, like we'll actually be able to reproduce that issue or see it firsthand, like, okay, yep, and that'll lead the developers to go in and like push a fix for that. And then as far as anomaly detection goes, yeah, our data scientist, Eric, has actually using R again. Like we look at these facet charts and he's actually using another R package to do some anomaly detection. And if an anomaly is detected, it'll send out an email to certain people on our team. So it's that's automated the process a bit. So yeah, we don't always have to look at it or run a report in order to see it. Like the software will bring it to our attention. So that's also a bit of an internal progression with this stuff, because we were doing it more manually before.
Very cool, very cool. So with our last few minutes here, I want to talk a little bit about where's this going for you guys? Where do you see analytics headed? And maybe bring in a little bit of talk about our old friend BigQuery, Google Analytics 360's best pal, BigQuery.
Yeah. So yeah, so all those properties that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, again, TED.com and our embed player and our mobile and TV apps. All of those GA properties are being exported daily into BigQuery. So we have all of that data there. And yeah, what's the main thing we're trying to do with all that data? We haven't, like we were talking about, like we haven't been focused on using that for reporting, but we're more focused on using it for personalization. So with our ever expanding library of content, like we want to make sure that users can find stuff that's most of interest to them. And so yeah, we're really trying to use the BigQuery data to look at user watch history and to be able to use that watch history in order to provide them personalized content recommendations.
Across platforms.
Yeah, so right now our focus is on TED.com for that content personalization, but yeah, we're getting started with it. So yeah, the ultimate plan will be to have that across platforms.
And across your owned or controlled platforms.
Correct.
Obviously, when we talk about what you can and can't achieve, obviously you can't affect YouTube's or Facebook's video recommendations.
Yes, yeah. So you can think of it, we're trying to control our own destiny a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of becoming table stakes in the marketplace at this point. Like users expect content personalization. So we're yeah, trying to use the 360 data as an opportunity to provide that functionality to our users on our owned and operated platforms for sure.
And keeping with the theme, your favorite tool R comes into play on this as well.
Yes. So yeah, we're using, so back to the slide with the circle and the three areas. So yeah, we're using Google Analytics on all the different owned and operated platforms, and we're exporting that to BigQuery. And yeah, if you think about like the video consumption funnel, we actually kind of break it out into a 0 to 5 scale. So a user that watches all the way to the end, like that might be worth a 5, or if they watch to almost to the end, like we might rate that a 4. And then we develop, so that's kind of like an implicit rating. Like the user hasn't explicitly said like I like this or I don't like it, but we're using the signal of them watching to the end as an implicit rating that they liked it. And then with R, we're building models in a batch on a daily schedule based on those user ratings. And then we're using a Node.js based web API that serves the talks from that model like into the browser to the user.
Very interesting.
Yep.
This is some pretty cool stuff. Well, Josh, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for giving us this sort of backstage look at how a very large, well-known video brand is tackling some pretty challenging analysis issues.
Yeah, happy to do it, and looking forward to the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.